This meeting is being recorded.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so it's good to have all of you here, and I will go ahead and share my screen. And we are on A Course in Miracles, Manual for Teachers, Section 5, How is Healing Accomplished? Healing involves an understanding of what the illusion of sickness is for. Healing is impossible without this. And, I am going to stop there because it's short, but it's so profound. Right? Like, do we ever ask what the illusion of sickness is for? Healing is impossible without this. If we don't understand what the illusion of sickness is for, what is it for? Do we ever even ask that question? What is this sickness for?
I was very impacted by even the word illusion.
Right.
That really struck me. Yeah, sickness is an illusion. And because it seems very real.
Right.
But I also realized that if sickness is an illusion, the way that everything about the body is an illusion, then health must be an illusion also.
There you go. Good point.
Yeah. Or a healthy body is just as much an illusion as a sick body. Because the illusion is the body, isn't it?
Right. It is.
The truth is
another distraction.
Yeah, whether it's healthy or sick. But I think there's what this is going to lead us on to, because I've already read it, is that there's more hell experience in a sick body than there is a healthy one.
Right.
There's more suffering, and the Son of God, the child of God, wasn't made to suffer. Really.
Right.
So all this suffering by our own hands, our own creation, is what we're going to be learning about here.
All right.
And hopefully it'll sink in deep enough. But
Right.
I already have started the practice of saying to myself, when I feel some discomfort, there's no purpose in that for me. And it does give some relief.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Or even ask, what is it for? Why? What is the illusion of sickness for? What is this for? Right.
Well, the only answer I would think would be for self-attack. That's the only answer I could give you for that.
Right.
And I think that's all part of the ego's plan to attack. Because don't we hear over and over that the ego is not really our friend as much as we like to think it is, because it's a completely untrue creation.
Mm-hmm.
Its plan is against us when we actually think it's for us. Ultimately, it's not really for us. I do struggle to put these ideas into words.
No, it's good, Freddie. It's good just to say how you feel, because it's it's all part of the process. Right. All right, let's continue and see what else there is to learn about this. The perceived purpose of sickness. Healing is accomplished the instant the sufferer no longer sees any value in pain. Who would choose suffering unless he thought it brought him something, and something of value to him? He must think it is a small price to pay for something of greater worth. For sickness is an election, a decision. It is a choice of weakness in the mistaken conviction that it is strength. When this occurs, Real strength is seen as threat and health as danger. Sickness is a method conceived in madness for placing God's Son on his Father's throne. God is seen as outside, fierce and powerful, eager to keep all power for himself. Only by his death can he be conquered by his Son. And what in this insane conviction does healing stand for? It symbolizes the defeat of God's Son and the triumph of his Father over him. It represents the ultimate defiance in a direct form, which the Son of God is forced to recognize. It stands for all that he would hide from himself to protect his life. If he is healed, he is responsible for his thoughts. And if he is responsible for his thoughts, he will be killed to prove to him how weak and pitiful he is. But if he chooses death himself, his weakness is his strength. Now has he given himself what God would give him, and thus entirely usurped the throne of his creator.
That's extremely deep, and it's extremely mad.
Yeah, yeah.
It's total insanity,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but very, very deep.
It's very deep. I know there's times when I've sat at the ocean's edge declaring, I am God. And you really have to get over that feeling of being unauthentic, right? To be able to say those words seems, how could I possibly be God? How could I be God, right? But if you are aligned with that one mind of God and you empower yourself with the ability to do things like heal your body, then again, you have to take responsibility for all the rest, which, there's that great paradox. Like, do I want to be God? Do I want to align with God? Do I want to take that responsibility for everything that happens in my life? Or do I want to be a victim and blame everybody and everything around me for my troubles and my woes? Because as soon as you step into those shoes, it's all you. Any thoughts about what we just read?
Yeah, I really agree with that, Terry, that I find a lot of people who are seeking, but they don't, it's like approach avoidance. You don't really want to get there because that's like this awesome responsibility is then kind of on your shoulders. You have no one else to look at, nowhere else to, to reconcile anything with. So it's easier to just say I'm looking, which is still looking outside yourself, than to actually say I'm going to do this.
Right. Yep.
Well,
So you're saying that I'm accountable for everything?
We all are.
Absolutely everything.
I did a meditation this morning with Panache Desai, and it focused on today was all about all of everything that you ever think that you've experienced is something that you have actually requested on some level. You've brought the experiences to your awareness that are going to serve your purpose. And so no matter where you're at, it's because it's what you've asked for. And I struggle with that sometimes. I really do. But it was eye-opening. And it kind of goes along with that whole thing with the experience of sickness or chronic illness. So
Mhm.
The course would teach us that we're all getting what we want all the time.
Right.
Everything is
Maybe
what
not what we think we want, but what we have on some level actually asked for.
Right.
I think subconsciously it's what we're actually wanting on a different level. I think sometimes you can stretch the word want to mean all sorts of different things. Like on a very subconscious level, it's what I want. Even though consciously I'd say it's the last thing I want. But what the course is saying, everything that we are experiencing is by our own desire,
Yeah, which
one
is,
way or another.
sometimes that's hard to swallow. But the only thing you can do is move through it and then look over your shoulder and just recognize that maybe that was your springboard. Even in the moment, if it seems awful, it's your springboard to get you to where you're going, or to that next level of awareness or consciousness or vibration or whatever you want to call it. But in the moment, it's kind of hard to recognize that.
I think it's hard to swallow if we're identified with the world of objects and body and life circumstances. But if I don't identify as that, as I identify with being above the battleground
Mhm.
and being the awareness which is living life out in that way, the way I think it's easier to see it that I'm getting everything I want if I identify with that awareness, which is beyond and above this world.
I think something else that's interesting that I've noticed in this conversation is we're talking about what I want,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not talking about what I am.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think it goes back to, if you understood what you were or what you are, you wouldn't want for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And if you could just really embrace, I am God, I am love, I am all that there is, I am the one mind of God, I am the universe, you would not want for anything.
Mm. So if that is what I am, I'm not of this world, really.
You're not of this world, no. And I
No.
think that's the trick, right? Is to be in the world, but not of the world, to have that understanding that I am everything. And then heaven on earth will be there for you to experience, because you will already know that you have everything.
Mm. Yeah.
It's the paradox again. It's the paradox of not wanting. And in the not wanting, you have everything.
Mm.
You have to not want to have everything.
Mm.
You have to
Yeah.
know you have everything in order to not want. Right?
I think there's a lesson, and I'm not sure now, because I've been known to make things up. So I've been told. So I begin to believe it. Anyway,
Aren't you making
I
this
think there's
all
a
up
lesson.
anyway?
There's a lesson that says, I am a holy child of God, perfect, spirit, free.
Yeah, exactly.
Expressing myself as I am.
Right.
Yeah, I am the holy child of God, expressing myself as this.
Right.
Yeah, there's another one that says, I am not a body, I am free, I'm still as God created me.
Right.
I think the thing for illnesses or sicknesses, like, can I break this down to the simplest high level look at it? Okay, so do I ever get disappointed? You can answer that, I'm sure. Yes, I do. Don't I then take in the problem of sickness? Because my mind is focused on that suffering. I don't release the focus on suffering till much later. I say to myself, oh, why should I be so disappointed about such and such or this or that. I have this conversation with myself, and in the conversation with myself, I see I don't have the power to change the situation and circumstances that I was disappointed about. So that doesn't necessarily cure me though, but I start on the right process now to see I'm not the one that controls the world, and therefore if I don't like it, I'm making myself sick over something that I can't control, something that's out of my power, something that does nothing really to do with me and how I feel about myself. So I'm not feeling about myself, and that's the problem. I'm projecting what I believe about why I have to suffer onto the world outside myself. And so I'm seeing it again, back and back again and again and again and again. How can I not be sick? People want to be healed over things, and I get it. I understand suffering is painful, but that's the value that we put on pain. We don't put a value on pain by saying, oh, pain is great. I love it. Oh man, I can't wait to be in pain again. But we do it by the fact that we're disappointed, we're confused, we think the world is chaotic, and these are all things of sickness. Which I'm sick.
I think that's too why, talking about the lesson again that we talked about earlier before we started recording, is lesson 51, the review today, is all about that, right? The thoughts of which I am aware do not mean anything because I'm trying to think without God, right? I am not aware of them because I have made my thoughts to take their place. It's just such a great lesson. I'm never upset for the reason I think. I make all things my enemies so that my anger is justified and my attacks are warranted. And I'm willing to let it go.
All those are the simplest things, and they make it, and they make our like it just humbles you when you see, like, I can't keep myself well by myself. I just can't do it, much as I try.
But the thing is that I'm not a body, but I don't actually really believe that.
You don't believe what?
That I'm not a body. I can go with the idea, yes, I am formless awareness, but I'm also a body.
Yeah, you try to explain it. Right? I get it. Yeah.
What I've got to do is give up the belief in the body.
Mm.
Yes.
So the body gives you the experiences that you have, but how you perceive those experiences, so you can look at them as, look, the body is suffering, and therefore I'm suffering along with the body. The body's feeling pain or has this sickness. If it has it, you also can choose to not have it. It's not permanent, but tend to think it is. It's like, oh, I have this and now I'll never get over it. It's speaking to you in another way that may not have words necessarily, but energy has been blocked in some way, whether it's because the world is chaotic and it's overwhelmed you, whether or not you just buy into the thing that, hey, I'm getting older now, I'm bound to have sicknesses, it's just the way this world is. Wherever the beliefs are is what you're manifesting, but it is speaking to you. So rather than be fighting it, look at the value in it and be able to ask it, what's your message? Why are you here? What are you speaking to me? And I'm willing to accept the value in what you're showing me rather than fight against it and hate it and therefore suffer along with it like you're a victim to it. It's just part of your earthly experience. When you no longer want to experience that, you can jump into experiencing something else, but you get to jump into it by recognizing that you've had this experience and now we're moving on to something else, or understanding that you've blocked that energy and now you can work with it and release that energy. And in that, it helps you release the other things that were in your mind that are really what's going on in the first place. The objects are secondary, but they're here they're valuable in that they're pointers.
I love that, Mary. And didn't we just read that? We just read that. The very first two sentences is healing involves an understanding of what the illusion of sickness is for, and healing is impossible without this. Not just unlikely, it's impossible. So brilliant, Mary. Ask the body, what is this for, instead of fighting against it. I love that. Thank you.
Mind you, there's something that came up. So the body suffers, yes, but the awareness doesn't suffer.
Right.
You know, the body is in pain, but the awareness doesn't experience pain. All the awareness does, which is actually who I really am.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, as awareness, I don't feel pain. My leg may have, you know, broken or something. The body might be suffering, but awareness just simply observes.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I need to, or that's what I think is the aim, to be so much at home in awareness that you're unaffected by what's going on in the body.
That's
and I
awesome.
think, you know, it's a bit, it's true what Mary was saying about the lessons in suffering, but I think this is going a little bit further than that, where I'm going with this.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned this before.
Yeah.
When I was in my 20s, I did this meditation, not knowing what was going to happen, not having any expectations, just did it. And I jumped out of my body completely out of my body. My awareness was in this vast, empty space of exhilaration. And the after effect, without even wanting or thinking or knowing this could happen, the after effect was my body was completely healed. Just by an instant, right? The holy instant. Just by that instant of connecting with the one mind of I am, my body was healed. It didn't take months or years or weeks or medicated. It was just like an instant of not attaching and associating that I am my body, understanding that I am not my body. But perfect, Freddie, what you said. It's just the awareness of what am I?
But that, what you experienced, was that transient, or has that remained your experience?
I've not tried to do it again. I mean, it took an instant. And I think if I did it again, I don't know what would happen. I guess I could try to recreate it, right? From where I am now. It could be fun.
Yeah, what I meant was the healing that you experienced, was that transient, or did it wear off?
Oh, no, it didn't wear off. It was like a reset. It was like a complete reset from day one. It's like you have a brand new body now.
Wow.
It was incredible. It was just really incredible. I mean, not that there was anything really bad or wrong, but I could just tell a notable difference in the lightness. It felt like a body of light. There was no sickness, no congestion, it was just vibrating with this healthy, vibrant, like here's your brand new computer. There you go. I just cleaned your hard drive. Now it's up to you to keep the viruses out. You know?
That what we are a body of light, but
Right.
because of this belief in the body, I'm not experiencing that. That's
Right.
not what experiences.
Right. That's the paradox.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Terry, can you show that book again? I just want to get the author
Sure.
and the title.
Stuart Wildey,
Okay. Got
The
it.
Sixth
Thank
Sense.
you.
There's a part in here that talks about, he's a great writer, by the way, he's really funny. And there's a section in there that says, you know, you don't have to sit on a mountaintop to get into a deep meditation. This is what you do, boom. And he just gives you like step by step. And I was like, oh, I'm going to try this. And I did. And I was like, went into this amazing, like completely unexpected state of awareness.
I did get the book on audiobooks, and I've listened to about a third of the way to half the way through, and it didn't resonate with me that much. He's a bit of a wide boy type of character, do you think?
Right. He's definitely a character. Definitely a character.
I'd like to get a reference from you which chapter to read.
Okay, sure. I'll take a look through it. I'll thumb through it, and maybe I'll send it out in the recording information, or I can just send it to you directly, Freddie. I'll do that.
Yeah, I'd like that. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
No problem. Okay, shall we continue?
Yep.
See what else there is to learn. The shift in perception. Healing must occur in exact proportion to which the valuelessness of sickness is recognized. One need but say, there is no gain at all to me in this, and he is healed. But to say this, one first must recognize certain facts. First, it is obvious that decisions are of the mind, not of the body. If sickness is but a faulty problem-solving approach, it is a decision. And if it is a decision, it is the mind and not the body that makes it. The resistance to recognizing this is enormous because the existence of the world, as you perceive it, depends on the body being the decision maker. Terms like instincts, reflexes, and the like represent attempts to endow the body with non-mental motivators. Actually, such terms merely state or describe the problem. They do not answer it. The acceptance of sickness as a decision of the mind for a purpose for which it would use the body is the basis of healing. And this is so for healing in all forms. A patient decides that this is so, and he recovers. If he decides against recovery, he will not be healed. Who is the physician? Only the mind of the patient himself. The outcome is what he decides that it is. Special agents seem to be ministering to him, yet they but give form to his own choice. He chooses them in order to bring tangible form to his desires. And it is this they do, and nothing else. They're not actually needed at all. The patient could merely rise up without their aid and say, I have no use for this. There is no form of sickness that would not be cured at once. What is the single requisite for this shift in perception? It is simply this: the recognition that sickness is of the mind and has nothing to do with the body. What does this recognition cost? It costs the whole world you see. For the world will never again appear to rule the mind. For with this recognition is responsibility placed where it belongs, not with the world, but on him who looks on the world and sees it as it is not. He looks on what he chooses to see, no more and no less. The world does nothing to him. He only thought it did. Nor does he do anything to the world, because he was mistaken about what it is. Herein is the release from guilt and sickness both, for they are one. Yet to accept this release, the insignificance of the body must be an acceptable idea. With this idea is pain forever gone. But with this idea goes also all confusion about creation. Does not this follow of necessity? Place cause and effect in their true sequence in one respect, and the learning will generalize and transform the world. The transfer value of one true idea has no end or limit. The final outcome of this lesson is the remembrance of God. What do guilt and sickness and pain, disaster and all suffering mean now? Having no purpose, they are gone. And with them also go all the effects they seemed to cause. Cause and effect, but replicate creation. Seen in their proper perspective, without distortion and without fear, they reestablish heaven.
I just had a little bit of an aha moment, and that was that in order to experience this, I would have to purify myself to a state of absolute purification. I don't think you can have this experience while you're living an ego's life. You know, I think you have to purify yourself spiritually, emotionally. I don't think it can keep this. I think you've got to be all in.
Yes. And you can have that experience by doing just that meditation and having that experience like I did. It doesn't take years and years of sitting on a mountaintop and meditating. It just takes an instant.
You just choose not to have an ego life. You just said it, basically. Which perspective are you coming from? The perspective of connection, wholeness, eternal life, etc., or duality, separation, fear, etc.
And it costs you the whole world you see.
So I'm saying it requires purification to experience it.
Yeah. Yeah. In my case, I experienced it inadvertently without even saying I have to purify myself. I just said, I'm going to try this meditation. I just had an open mind and said, I'm just going to follow these steps and try this meditation without even thinking I have to give up all the world. I have to do this. I have to, so many things I have to do first. No, I don't have to do anything. I just have to visualize this little ball rising up and down inside of me. I have to open up my chakras and focus on that. I have to focus on none of this and all of this. And simply by focusing on all of the visualization of the technique of this little spinning ball going up and down and opening my chakras, I inadvertently jumped into the universe and had that experience of being all that there is. I think we make it into this big deal.
Yeah.
I have to give up all this stuff. It's going to take so much time. I have to study and think. I think the problem is we've already done all of that. We just have to stop doing all of that. We have to just let go. Let go of the idea that it's hard. Let go of the idea that it's going to be this great thing that is going to be so time consuming, and just let it all go.
And it's interesting that the other part of that story, Terry, is that you said that the second you questioned, oh my God, how am I going to get out of here? Boom, you were back in your body.
I was back.
The second that you questioned what that was all about, boof, it was over.
Well, it wasn't even questioning what it was about. I was afraid. I couldn't find the door. I didn't know where I was. And I'm like, this is amazing. And then I was like, oh God, how do I get out? And then it was like, boom, done. And that's what it was. I was like, so I was breathless. It took my breath away. That's how incredible the experience was. And I was so excited. And then the second I was like, where's the door? It was over. And I remember thinking to myself, where's the door? Because I couldn't see it. I didn't know where I was. So the ego pulled me back. But it was a really interesting experience, you know, to know that I'm not my body. To have that experience was incredible.
Yeah, for me, the proof that this is not our body, because it's not permanent. I was reading some Buddhist thing about this and talked about how the fact that our bodies will eventually dissipate is proof that we're not this body. We're not permanent in this body, but spirit is permanent.
Mhm. And then if you think about the disappearance of the universe with Arten and Persa, who just were able to create a body at will, right? And there's another thing that we think that's not possible. Well, why wouldn't it be possible? If this is all an illusion, why wouldn't I be able to just think I had a body and then decide to jump into it for a few minutes and then jump out of it? I mean, if this is really like the Matrix, if this is just a series of blinking dots on and off that create all of the mass and everything that I see around me, why wouldn't my mind be powerful enough just to create a body at will at any moment to have whatever experience I want to have? And if I'm God, why wouldn't I be able to do that? And if I'm everything and everybody all at once, of course I should be able to do that.
But then it kind of begs the question, why do those individuals create those experiences and those of us here don't? But then it comes back to, if we're all one, why are we not experiencing that oneness and going with them when they jump in their body and out? I can't wrap my head around that. And it's not about wrapping your head around. It's about letting go of what you think you know, what you think you believe, and all of that. So therein lies the complexity of getting to that point where, you know, you can even jumping like into a parallel universe kind of thing.
Right.
To me, it's kind of boggling, really.
It is. And maybe the whole point is the understanding and the lesson of I am everything. And until we believe that.
Yeah, I think.
In a sense, we have that with empathy, that we do kind of meld into someone else or something else as we are experiencing something. And then we think that's so awesome, like to be captivated in nature and just being present to it so much that you feel like you're part of it. You become that. Or when you're empathizing so much with another human being and you just take that on. But if you know that you are spirit, then you can see how you're able to do that. But if you think you're a body, then it's like, no, there's no proof of that. My body's still here. And so it lessens the experience because we think that shape-shifting is about the body and it's about the spirit. So the spirit does it quite often. We just don't acknowledge that because we're object-oriented.
That's what I was thinking when you said, why don't we experience it, Alicia? I think the reason is because we identify with this body.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
unlike what Terry is saying, identify with I am, which isn't a body at all.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, let's keep going. Great conversations. The function of the teacher of God. If the patient must change his mind in order to be healed, what does the teacher of God do? Can he change the patient's mind for him? Certainly not. For those already willing to change their minds, he has no function except to rejoice with them, for they have become teachers of God with him. He has, however, a more specific function for those who do not understand what healing is. These patients do not realize they have chosen sickness. On the contrary, they believe that sickness has chosen them, nor are they open-minded on this point. The body tells them what to do and they obey. They have no idea how insane this concept is. If they even suspected it, they would be healed. Yet they suspect nothing. To them, the separation is quite real. To them, God's teachers come to represent another choice, which they had forgotten. The simple presence of a teacher of God is a reminder. His thoughts ask for the right question, what the patient has accepted as true. As God's messengers, his teachers are the symbols of salvation. They ask the patient for forgiveness for God's Son in his own name. They stand for the alternative. With God's word in their minds, they come in benediction, not to heal the sick, but to remind them of the remedy God has already given them. It is not their hands that heal. It is not their voice that speaks the word of God. They merely give what has been given them. Very gently, they call to their brothers to turn away from death. Behold you, Son of God, what life can offer you. Would you choose sickness in place of this? Not once do the advanced teachers of God consider the forms of sickness in which their brother believes. To do this is to forget that all of them have the same purpose, and therefore are not really different. They seek for God's voice in this brother who would so deceive himself as to believe God's Son can suffer. And they remind him that he did not make himself and must remain as God created him. They recognize illusions can have no effect. The truth in their minds reaches out to the truth in the minds of their brothers, so that illusions are not reinforced. They are thus brought to truth. Truth is not brought to them. So are they dispelled, not by the will of another, but by the union of the one will with itself. And this is the function of God's teachers, to see no will as separate from their own, nor theirs as separate from God's.
That just last piece just reiterated what you were saying about the one mind,
Right, right.
the one will.
And just a reminder.
It's
right?
a huge shift though, isn't it? I think a huge shift is required to get to that level.
Or just an instant, right? I think sometimes
Yeah.
when we use the word huge, it seems so hard, right? But when we realize it could happen in just an instant of
Yeah.
accepting and changing one's mind.
But what it means is completely turning around away from the world to within. It's
I don't
huge.
know about letting go, right? About letting go of your attachment to the world.
Yes.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
My belief in it,
Right.
to my belief in I am
Right.
beyond the world.
Beyond the world. Right.
Mm.
And it's not really huge. It's just a change of mind
Mm.
and a practice, right? So I remember when I first started doing my interior design, and I was so nervous first starting out, and I would sit in front of the mirror and I'd say, I am an interior designer. I am an interior designer, because I was kind of shy, even though I outwardly appeared to be outgoing. I was a little bit, I had some anxieties and some fears at the time, and I had to kind of build myself up, right? And I've done the same thing with Course in Miracles, where I've looked at myself in the mirror and said, I am God. I am God. And at first you look at yourself and you go, I don't believe you. But the more you say it, and the more you say it with love and with conviction, I think that really does help. I am love. I am God. I am light, all of those things, just to reinforce who you are, because we look and we see our arms and our fingers, and, we look in the mirror and see our faces, and we think, well, this must be what I am. because I see this.
Mm.
But if you can look past it and look into your own eyes and just say, I am God, or even look out in nature and say, I am God, or, you know, at the ocean, which I'm close to the ocean, I can do that, which is fun. But there's other places you can just lay in the ground and look up at the sky and say, I am God, right? I mean, that's awesome too.
I think you're a great teacher, Terry. That was good to hear.
Well, I'm glad it helped.
And I think that's what's needed. That's what's required to
Mhm.
completely turn the focus around to what I am in truth,
Right.
not what I am outside of that.
Right. Exactly.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, trying to follow some of the lessons for me has been challenging also, but I'm sticking with them, especially the ones about I want to like hear the voice of God's voice speaks to me all day long.
Right.
And then at night I try to, say them like that, and when I'm in bed, try to, go to sleep thinking and saying some of these things. And then the first thought that occurred to me was like, if I hear the voice of God, I'm going to be really afraid. It was going to scare the heck out of me, right? I'm thinking to myself, and I say, wow, what thought just went through me, like, wow, what was that about?
You laugh about that, but that's what I did at 4 years old. And so I blacked out everything.
What's that? What did you say? What did you say?
I used to see the future when I was young. I see a few moments into the future when I was young. And when I stopped doing that was because I was frightened by it.
Mm.
So, I mean, if you think that you have that experience, and in fact, you prove to yourself you have the experience, you can still turn it right off.
Well, I mean, and I say this because
you don't have to be afraid. I mean,
yeah.
Be afraid of God doesn't matter because
well,
you're just afraid. That's all.
So let me continue with this with this thing. So when I was about I say I was about 13, and I was always thinking religion and all of that, and I sat down and I knelt down and I started praying and I said, God, if you exist, move that picture for me right now. This is me 13. I mean, I think back, what was I thinking, right? But I wanted proof, really. I mean, it was an honest, nothing ever happened, right? It didn't happen. And then that same thought that I was telling you about occurred to me, say, well, if that picture really moved, I'm going to, have brown spots on my underwear, So it didn't happen, blah, 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 But I did have a dream where I had this luminous being at the foot of my bed. Okay. Sometime within that frame. And that bugged the heck out of me. I couldn't make out whether it was real or not. So I started thinking, well, what happened? Nothing happened. There were no words exchanged. However, I was not afraid. I had no fear of this luminous being in front of me. And all I could make out was the face, and the rest of it was so much light, I couldn't see whether it was a body or it was floating or whatever. But I was not afraid.
Yeah.
And then I pondered that. I mean, I started even going to mass every day after that. I mean, I went through this whole thing for a while. And then I just kind of let it go, but it was always in the back of my mind. It wasn't until I was about, I think I had turned 50. And I started reading Don Miguel and all that stuff, and this all came back to me. And I realized that, you know what? My prayers were answered. There is something out there.
Yeah.
I began to recognize at that age. And that's what started me with Don Miguel and the Course of Miracle and all that stuff. Because I knew that, in a sense, what I was looking at was really myself. That's why I wasn't afraid.
Ooh, that's awesome. I love that, Ernesto.
Yeah, because God is not outside of us. You are God.
Right.
God is looking through your eyes and in your breath. Like Terry was saying, I am God.
Yeah, I just got truth bumps, Freddie, all up and down my arms when you said that, when you were talking to Ernesto. Look, let's finish this last section because I don't want to miss it. It's one quick little section. Is healing certain? Healing is always certain. It is impossible to let illusions be brought to truth and keep the illusions. Truth demonstrates illusions have no value. The teacher of God has seen the correction of his errors in the mind of the patient, recognizing it for what it is. Having accepted the at-one-ment for himself, he has also accepted it for the patient. Yet, what if the patient uses sickness as a way of life, believing healing is the way to death? When this is so, a sudden healing might precipitate intense depression and a sense of loss so deep that the patient might even try to destroy himself. Having nothing to live for, he may ask for death. Healing must wait for his protection. Healing will always stand aside when it would be seen as threat. The instant it is welcome, it is there. Where healing has been given, it will be received. And what is time before the gifts of God? We have referred many times in the text to the storehouse of treasures laid up equally for the giver and the receiver of God's gifts. Not one is lost, for they can but increase. No teacher of God should feel disappointed if he is offered healing and it does not appear to have been received. It is not up to him to judge when his gift should be accepted. Let him be certain it has been received and trust that it will be accepted when it is recognized as a blessing and not a curse. It is not the function of God's teachers to evaluate the outcome of their gifts. It is merely their function to give them. Once they have done that, they have also given the outcome. For that is part of the gift. No one can give if he is concerned with the result of giving. That is limitation on the giving itself, and neither the giver nor the receiver would have the gift. Trust is an essential part of giving. In fact, it is the part that makes sharing possible, the part that guarantees the giver will not lose, but only gain. Who gives a gift and then remains with it to be sure it is used as the giver deems appropriate? Such is not giving, but imprisoning. It is the relinquishing of all concern about the gift that makes it truly given. And it is trust that makes true giving possible. Healing is the change of mind that the Holy Spirit in the patient's mind is seeking for him. And it is the Holy Spirit in the mind of the giver who gives the gift to him. How can it be lost? How can it be ineffectual? How can it be wasted? God's treasure house can never be empty. And if one gift is missing, it would not be full. Yet is its fullness guaranteed by God. What concern then can a teacher of God have about what becomes of his gifts given by God to God, who in this holy exchange can receive less than everything? Dun, dun, dun. You know, the first part of that reminded me when I was at that place of really, really, really deep, dark depression in my life, where I wasn't necessarily contemplating suicide, but I felt like there was nothing left for me here in this world. I felt like, you know, this world was just a big trick. You know, it was the promise of happily ever after. You know, I fell for the Cinderella story really hard when I was young. And I thought I would meet my handsome prince and, you know, go riding off into the sunset and just live happily ever after. And when that didn't happen again and again and again and again, I just got really disappointed and really like pissed off at God. And I remember saying, you know, this is not funny. I don't know why you think this is hilarious to see us all suffering down here trying to find happiness. And I got really mad and said, I'm done with this. I'm done with this life. I'm done with this world. I'm done with this illusion, because I had been doing Course in Miracles. So, you know, intellectually, I knew it was an illusion. And I was just like, this is not for me. I'm done playing your game, whoever you are, God, I'm out, I'm done. And I fell into this really deep depression, and it lasted for several months. And I started getting pains in my heart, even like near the end of it, like I was going to have a heart attack, and I was pretty sure I was not going to be here much longer. And at that moment where I was really just at the bottom of the pit and just had nothing left, because I stopped looking out here, is when I finally felt that spark of light and that spark of love and that spark of God. So I get it where it says here that healing could initiate that sense of depression. Like, what is there left to live for? Because I felt that. Why am I here? If this is all an illusion, what's the point? And I remember being in that place, and it's interesting how you just have to change your mind about it in order to actually see heaven on earth. And it is a total giving up of this.
The trouble is the world seems to be so full of promise, doesn't it? It looks like
Promise
it's
out
so,
here.
yeah, out there. It looks so
Yeah.
full of promise. And if I'm not making it in this world, which is so full of opportunity, something wrong with me. And I've had that feeling, that stressful feeling in the chest throughout my life, because I think I'm still believing in the world, because it seems so full. It's like the Garden of Eden, isn't it?
Right.
The world is like the Garden of Eden, but it's just not true.
But the world you see isn't true. And if you join with that one mind of God, even Course in Miracles says it'll be so much better than what you think you're seeing now. And you think there's so much promise here. You think that there's so much promise that I can't grab it. It's not, the world is unfair and I can't grab it. And the moment you change your perspective and understand I am God, you're going to see a whole different world that has so much more beauty in it. And it's kind of like you can't understand what you've never seen. You just have to have faith that it's there, right? It's that leap of faith.
You brought up time earlier today about the experience that you had that happened in an instant. And time is one of my favorite subjects. Time happens in my mind, time happens just like that. And sometimes I see it just like that, all of it. Like just in a flash, it's all compressed into that one single, not even a fraction of a second, so small. And there it is. And sometimes I see it. And it's frightening, to tell you the truth. You had an experience where it wasn't frightening by the meditation, and perhaps that prepared you, but when I see a flash of it, it's enough for me. I don't want to see it more. And I really don't. Seriously, I just want to shut it off. And I can't stop that. It's like I don't want to shut it off because oh, isn't that cool? You can see everything at once. But it's not. It's frightening. It's not cool.
It's interesting, and I wonder what is that for, right? I mean, it goes back.
I mean, you see all the horrors, you see everything all at once. Seriously,
right? So
why the planets have to crash into other planets? Why is the universe made the way it is? It's very tragic.
And in the beginning of what we were reading today was understanding of what the illusion of sickness is for, right? And healing is impossible without this. So seeing the crashing of planets, seeing, if indeed even the planets are illusions, right? Because that's part of the world we see.
Intellectually and all that, I get it. Like I mean, I studied time. I like all these things. I went into looking into it to see like Does this even make sense? Is this even possible? Is this actually right? I mean, the Course in
Right.
Miracles is the one I settled on because it's more general than most stuff. Most stuff
Right.
in my mind is pretty, it's very tragic and horrific.
So if you were to ask the question, what is this for? Do you think that
Yeah.
would be helpful?
Maybe.
I mean, and that's
I
what
gotta
it
tell
says
you
in
the
the
truth, I really
beginning.
don't want to. It's like,
Right, because we're afraid.
I just like to let it pass. I really don't.
Right.
look at
We
it.
don't want to see it. We're
I really
afraid. We
want to
don't
look
want
at
to
it. I really
ask.
don't.
We don't want to ask the question, but maybe if we ask the question, what is this for? Of course says healing is impossible without this. Maybe if we just ask the question, then what is this
It's another
for?
lifetime, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Seriously. I just don't want to go that far.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
go ahead. More
it
comments?
seems like, we do see like there's certain facts that we know about the universe, right? The colliding of universes. Our universe, with the one we live in now, this galaxy was a combination of two galaxies, from what I've read, and black holes sucking everything. So it seems like everything is going to go in there and dissipate, or does it go in there and rejuvenates, reborn again?
Mhm.
That's the way I was looking at it. I used to look at it as, oh, this is destruction going. No, something is happening here to continue. I believe that it's a continuum always. This is my latest
A
belief.
portal to a different universe.
Ooh, I like that, Alicia. And it's
Exactly.
still an illusion. It's still another illusion.
Yes.
right?
Oh, yes. But it's a continuum, though. It's not a finish.
Right, sure. Well, because we're eternal beings. How could it be a finish?
Infinity is a thought that makes time. Infinity is a simple separation idea. And infinity makes all of time, and it makes all of time all the time. But it makes time all a time in that one instant that you call the tiny mad idea, that the Course defines as tiny mad idea. So you can see the tiny mad idea from three perspectives, but you normally see a blend of these perspectives, not seeing the actual one moment this way, and then this way, and then this way. There's no continuity that way. It just all spirals and makes a reality as you see it. So the reality as you see it is what you're making in your mind to be real to you. So my mind tricked me into believing enough to see everything when I was like 3 years old or whatever. Ever since, I saw things for a few instances ahead, until I stopped doing that, because in fact, I just didn't seem to need it anymore. I seemed to be protecting myself without needing it anymore. And it sort of went away, and I kind of forgot about it, to tell you the truth. But I never forgot about the instances that happened when I would see everything in just one flash. Like, it's so short, it's impossible to put everything into that so shortness. But those were when I read the Course in Miracles and I saw the tiny mad idea, and I saw at the same instant that he provided for us the Holy Spirit. And then I saw later, oh, this holy instant erases all of that. And I said, whoa, that's exactly what time told me. It's exactly what I saw when I started looking at how time comes from infinity. The finite knows nothing of the infinite, really.
Mhm.
The finite, but in the finite, there is always evidence of the infinities that makes the finite reality. So if you follow your mind back, you'll see that infinitely everything's there. Everything that ever happens or could happen or might happen is in that mind that sees the world that way and makes the world that way and puts it into your brain where it's totally dark, but it lights it up as if it's picture, as if it's in a moment that you can see. You don't see anything with your eyes, really. You simply see a reflection of what is already in your brain that makes up something that you see outside yourself. That all happens before infinity collapses into the finite world that you see. So it already happened.
Interesting.
It is interesting, but it's also quite frightening when you see the power of it, because the power is so misused. It's very frightening.
Okay.
So there you go. You're all scared to death now. See you next week.
That's
All right.
another.
So
Nothing to fear.
I want to reiterate before people start jumping off that I will not be hosting A Course in Miracles for the next 2 weeks. I will be back on March 13th. So we will be live again on 13th. So I just wanted to let you know that. I'll still have access to my social media. I'll still have access to my emails. So if anybody wants to talk about anything, lessons or course related material or not, you know how to get me and reach out to me. And Freddie, I'll try to get that information about the meditation to you too.
Thank you.
You are welcome. As always, amazing conversation. Thank you, everybody. Does anybody have any last things they want to share before we close?
Happy new moon.
Oh, thank you, Carl.
Enjoy that grandchild.
You have what?
I said, enjoy your grandbaby.
Thank you. I will enjoy my sweet Isabel. Thank you so much.
Have a
Thank
great
Okay,
break.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful day and thanks for joining.
God bless you all.
Thank you, Freddie. God bless you too.
Likewise.